Hello and welcome back to our NST web app training video series. In this video, we're going to go over using the filtering and sorting functions in the NST web app. Okay, so to begin, we're going to select our geographic group. You can see that for me, I'm in the Cleveland City group. In a previous video, I spoke about how to search by house number, street name, owner name, or any combination of those three by selecting the search button. In this video, I'm going to go over using the filtering tool, which is another way of searching for different parcels with a similar characteristic. So to get started, I've selected several different columns that I'm interested in. For this exercise, I've selected current owner, tax delinquent balance, date acquired, postal vacancy, property class, and total estimated market value. These categories each have different value types, so you can see some of them might have values that are a date, some might be a dollar amount, so on and so forth. And I'm going to walk you through the different ways of filtering these different values. So first I'm going to show you how to filter a column with a flag designation. What this means is that there are only two values that could be loaded into this column, a 0 for no or a 1 for yes. So let's go ahead and click on postal vacancy for the second quarter in 2014. For vacancy, I know that 0, no, means that that property is not vacant. And if I select 1, that means yes, there is postal vacancy for that property. To add that filter, let's say that I wanted to only see properties that do not have a postal vacancy designation. I would hit flag as 0, meaning that the flag in that column has been entered as a 0, and I'm going to hit add filter. It's working, and I can see that there are 166,030 parcel records in this Cleveland City group with a postal vacancy designated as 0, so no postal vacancy. I'm going to go ahead and hit reset filter. It's going to take me back to my default table. If I wanted to see only the properties that were listed as having a postal vacancy designation, I would click this heading again, and in my drop-down menu I'd hit flag as 1, I'd add that filter, and now I could see that there are 9,271 parcel records that do have a postal vacancy designation, so are considered postal vacant. So again, a flag column will give you two options for filtering, those options being 0 for no and 1 for yes. Next, I'm going to reset my filter and go back to my default table with all of my parcels. I'm going to show you how to filter by a number range. So let's say I were looking at a column with a bunch of different numerical values. I could specify a certain range of values that I wanted to see. For example, I may want to learn more about estimated market value for properties in Cleveland. So I'm going to go ahead and click that column heading, and I can see in this box that pops up, I can either set a minimum value, a maximum value, or a range of values for this column. So let's say I wanted to see parcels in Cleveland with an estimated market value of more than $25,000. So I would go ahead and hit 25,000. And let's say I didn't want them to be any more than $75,000. So I'm going to go ahead and enter 75,000 in my maximum value box. And so now I've set this range. So all of the parcels that show up are going to be between $25,000 and $75,000 in terms of their estimated market value. If I add that filter, I see that there are 80,953 parcel records in this Cleveland City group that fall within this estimated market value range of $25,000 to $75,000. Again, I could have just set a minimum value of $25,000. This would have shown me all parcels in the Cleveland City group with an estimated market value of more than $25,000. Or I could have set a maximum value, and it would have shown me all of the parcels in this Cleveland City group that were valued at less than $75,000. Basically, it's up to you. It depends on what range you're interested in. I'm going to go ahead and reset my table back to its default view. So next, another option is for you to filter by date range. So let's say you wanted to look at parcels that were acquired during a certain time period, or you were looking at a column, for example, that it had a bunch of dates listed. So for date acquired, let's say I was interested in any parcel in Cleveland that was acquired between January 1st, 2014 and January 1st, 2015. I don't care who they were acquired by, I just want to see all parcels acquired within that date range. I'd click on the date acquired heading, and enter those minimum and maximum date, or enter that date range. So minimum date means the furthest back in history. So for me, that's January 1st, 2014. That's the furthest back I want my search to go. And then the most recent date I care about is January 1st, 2015. So now you can see I've got that date range listed in my minimum date and maximum date boxes. I'm going to add that filter, and I can see in my record counter that there are 13,146 parcels that were acquired between January 1st, 2014 and January 1st, 2015. All right, so I'm going to reset my filter again to go back to my default. Now you can filter a column with a set number of values. So for example, property class. What this means is that there are specific values or identifiers in this column that you want to filter to. In this column, there's not going to be a limitless amount of information. So property class, that means that there's only certain ways that properties can be designated. There's only, a dozen some designations within the city of Cleveland for the way that properties are being used. So I'm going to go ahead and click this column heading. If you knew what the property class designation was that you were interested in, you could go ahead and type it in the box. However, you want to be careful, because if you don't know exactly how that is coded, you might be looking for a residential property and you might type in RES because you assume that it's coded that way, but it might actually be coded as residential. So to see how different things are coded in this column, I could go to load values, and to the right, all the values in this column are going to show up. So I could see that in this column, values are either coded as blank, or there's, these dozen or so different codes that could go into this value, or can go into this column. So for example, let's say that I was only interested in commercial properties in Cleveland. I would go ahead and hit the arrow next to commercial. Now I see commercial has populated into my box. I would go to search, and then I would add that filter. And now I can see that there are 15,443 parcels that are designated as commercial properties in Cleveland. And then you could also go back and you could add other values if you're interested in those other values. Finally, you can also filter a category with a limitless amount of values. So an example of this is current owner. There's not 10 or 15 different owners in Cleveland. There's a limitless amount of owners in Cleveland, and there's no set amount of names that could be listed in this column. So let's say I wanted to see all the properties owned by the Cleveland Clinic in the city of Cleveland. I'd select the owner heading, and in my box, I'd type in Cleveland Clinic. But I also know that sometimes the Cleveland Clinic goes by Cleveland Clinic Foundation, so I'm going to type that in on a separate line. I would go ahead and hit search in my drop-down menu, and then I would add that filter. And now I can see that there are 131 parcel records in the city of Cleveland that have current owner as, that have Cleveland Clinic as the current owner. And as you can see, that there are different ways that the Cleveland Clinic has the name listed. If I hit previous or next, I could start to browse through these 131 parcel records to see all the different parcels owned by the Cleveland Clinic. Okay, so another option, or another interesting feature, is you could hit the Show Filters button, and a box will show up showing you all of the different filters currently being applied to your table. So right now, I could see that the only filter on my table is in the current owner column, and it's searching for Cleveland Clinic or Cleveland Clinic Foundation as one of the values listed in that column. I could remove that if I wanted to, so I would remove all the filters. Or I had multiple filters on my table. So for example, let's say that I had search for Cleveland Clinic as the owner and an estimated market value. I had listed $100,000 as the minimum market value for a Cleveland Clinic property. So it's going to take its time. I can see that there are 31 parcel records in the city of Cleveland that are owned by the Cleveland Clinic and have a minimum estimated market value of $100,000. If I went up to this Show Filters button again, now I could see that there are multiple filters being applied to my table. I could remove one, I could remove both of them, and my table would reload accordingly. So finally, I'm going to reset all my filters, and all of my columns again have been reset to include my entire geography. If I hit reset all, it'll take my table back to its default setting with all of the parcels in my geography and only those 3 default columns. Finally, you can also sort values. So let's say you want your values ordered from largest to smallest or vice versa. You could sort your columns accordingly. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. I'm just going to select something that I know is numerical, delinquent tax balance. Let's say that I wanted my table to be sorted from largest delinquent tax balance to smallest delinquent tax balance. I would hit this certified delinquent tax balance and I would say sort descending. Sort descending means largest to smallest, whereas sort ascending means smallest to largest. So I'm going to go ahead and hit sort descending. And I'm going to go back to my first page because my table wasn't on the first page. Now I can see that my table is sorted with largest certified tax delinquent balance listed first, and all of those numbers are getting smaller. So as I browse through the pages, the numbers would be getting smaller and smaller and smaller all the way down to 0. And that concludes our video on using the filtering and sorting functions in the NST web app. If you have any questions, please feel free to email nstwebapp@case.edu and a team member will get back to you shortly. Thank you.